Greetings! It is time for another beloved Nebulous Racks update. Me oh my, it's been for freaking ever. Yeah, so this is what the engine looks like right now. Ah! Pretty ridiculous. Looks like a rainbow vomited all over everything. Why? Because I have deferred rendering implemented. Me oh my gosh. I also have very realistic light model implemented using BRDFs and stuff like that. And so the Bezier curves flying above me look quite fancy. Fancier than they did before, even. So, what else is there off the top of my head? Bloom! We have implemented Bloom. Bloom is off. Bloom is on. Bloom is off. Bloom is on. Yeah. Everything is generally more stable. So looking around the space bodies, everything is like it doesn't look buggy as crap. And even more importantly, the frame rate is way better after some major refactoring and optimizations I've done. And so looking at this terrain now, I'm capped by fraps at 30, but I actually get 60 looking at this easily. There's a CPU issue right now where like if I leave it running for a bit, it'll start thrashing, or if I have way too many space bodies. Not thrashing, but it'll slow down. It'll go to around actually 30, so just to be clear. But otherwise, I'm at a consistent 60. And that's not using that algorithm I demonstrated last time. This is just in general. The GPU hit is much smaller now. So yeah, fancy things are happening. So what else is there? I have the massive frame rate boost that I just like today basically got done doing, in addition to a general frame rate boost from going to the deferred renderer. I have the lighting model implemented on the BRD on the Bezier curves. And so if we take a look at these things, I'm going to reposition the light so we can see them just a little bit better. Oh, the light is currently hovering over my head. It should be hovering over my head. I pressed L. Whatever. If I place it right near, should be able to see things just a bit better. And so yeah, here are all the Bezier curves. These look quite chalky, chalktacular even. So let me see if I can remember how the axes work over here. One axis is metallicness, whereas the other axis is roughness. So I believe... Okay. So I'm pretty sure they get more and more metallic as they go the way that I'm facing. Oh, there's a body on top of me. And then roughness is actually along this axis. And so over here, these are incredibly smooth. And so they have very tiny specular highlights that you can see off of those 5 lights that were flying around over there. And I think things look pretty crazy if I actually, go in here. Yeah, I like this effect. Do I have bloom off? I do. I do have bloom off. But let's keep it off to continue looking at these bad boys. So roughness along one axis, so you can see that these are quite sheeny and shiny, shiny, if you will. Whereas the curves down here are quite smooth. And especially as you go this way, they almost look like fabric. Like, especially over here. And then when metallicness kind of starts kicking in, it's a little more, I guess, generic looking, almost crayon-like. Which is good. I could use some crayon-like materials, not gonna lie. And then very metallic looking things. Oh, until you get over here into like glitchy neon car territory. And I don't know if you can tell with YouTube, but the specular highlights are so small that they're actually pixelated, and it causes the bloom to be like a seizure. So if I turn bloom back on, you can see that it's you can probably tell that it's very jittery for the ones over here. And so I need to implement a post pass so I can clear up those pixels just a little bit so they're not so crazy. Yeah, what else is there? I should probably show you how I'm doing the deferred rendering. If you take a look at the bottom left of the screen, you'll see that I am, that's the final texture before it's rendered out to the actual screen. And so I can actually iterate through these and show you what's going on. So here's the high pass before I do bloom, so it just gets all the bright colors from the lighting. And then there's the blur, or that's not all the blur, but that's one layer of blur just to kind of demonstrate. Here's the albedo drawn out from the deferred pass, from the geometry pass before building everything. So deferred rendering is pretty, I guess conceptually not too hard. Basically, instead of writing out all of your pixels directly to the screen, you write different components of your world out to different textures and then composite them together later in a final pass. And that saves on many things. While it has its own costs, but it can, particularly for lighting, it can make things very snazzy. So not trivial, but conceptually, it's not hard to understand. And so at the bottom left, you can see all the just flat colors, and that's the albedo on each surface that gets written out. There's the normal, the compressed normal at that. That is the material ID, so all these have different materials. And that's nothing, yeah. And so that's about it for the deferred stuff, anyways. More stuff. The bloom, so let's try and get a good look at what the bloom can look like. So you see over here how the pink is just glows off of the surface here. Currently I don't have any light shining off of the, you can see those little tubes moving through the air. Those are actual, the actual lights emitting this. Currently I don't have anything coming out of the lights themselves, and I believe the correct way to do that is to invert their normals, so they're just backwards. But I do have, non-light sources look quite bloom-tacular and everything. And so you can see the red just kind of emissively glowing off of this surface because the light is so close to it and so bright. I have, not going to demonstrate it now, I don't know if I will later, but I have point lights and spotlights and directional lights all implemented. Not too bad. The spotlight currently has a rough edge. I could turn all these into spotlights, I guess, but I have to do some work to get them to move in an interesting way. But the spotlight has a very sharp edge right now, and I think the typical technique is to blur it. That's probably not. In fact, that's actually very easy to do. But I just have to figure out how I want to do that. Or if I even want to support spotlights, because it takes a little bit of work to do and maybe not worth the maintenance cost. I still haven't filled in the cracks of these seams, obviously. And the reason I haven't done that is I was waiting to see if I could actually get marching cubes performing quickly enough to my tastes. And I can. And so I'm pretty sure this is the direction I'm going to go with. Now, this is, well, I'm not actually sure, because it's still, there's some complicated questions to ask. So when I'm actually manipulating terrain, or let's say I'm walking on terrain with my character, I have to figure out, what's the normal of the surface underneath me, which means I have to have this data referenceable somehow. And that is not trivial. With a block scheme, it's pretty straightforward, but for this, I would have to, in the chunk, I'd either have to cache the normal, or I'd have to just compute it on the fly. Honestly, computing it on the fly is probably not too bad, but still. Well, it's not just the normal, also I have to calculate the entire surface. So that's not great. I mean, I guess what I can do is I can just I could just store an index just like you would for normal. So marching cubes, the way it works is you you iterate over your voxel data, just like a bunch of three-dimensional pixels, and you just kind of you use some heuristics and metrics to say, here is the particular case of 512 different cases of cubes that I want to render. And so one case could be, a cube that looks just like this, and then another case could be that one, and then there's 512 cases. There's a lot, but you can estimate a surface using these. And so what I could do is cache that cube index and then do a lookup on it and a little bit of math to figure out positioning and things. So yeah, it's not trivial at all, but definitely a strong possibility at this point, especially given how fast I'm getting this. Yeah, because I'm getting 60 FPS now, which is huge, because before I was oh, it's at 20, we'll get it faster, and now it's faster, so. Let's pull the light down. Maybe we can see a little more bloom. With the light right next to me, you can see everything just kind of glowing like crazy. Or is it glowing? Hold on. Yes, it is. Yeah. What else is there? So I did, the lighting again was a good bit of work just on the Bezier curves themselves. Also, I have done some work to get a Bezier curve library going. And so you can actually, I can do things like, go between Bezier and Hermite and just handle cubic curves of any variety. And I can also, I have things to compute the tangents and normals and all that stuff on the CPU. So I can also truncate the Bezier curve. So I could theoretically, I could have one of these curves in an arc, envision the McDonald's arc, and then have the cylinder itself kind of moving along that arc, which would be quite fancy. Oh, another thing is that these are all, if the colors look a little off, not off, but a little more complex maybe, it's because I have subsurface lighting enabled, and so it's just an approximation, but every one of these Bezier curves has a subsurface color that is the inverse of its shown exterior color. And so if I go out, yeah, there we go, and we just look at these. These, I believe, are, I think it's red and blue here, purple and blue. If I get the light right here, we can tell for sure. Yeah, so it's a blue surface with a red undertone, like a teal surface with a red undertone. It's making it come out purple. And so if we go over here, this is again like a blue surface, but with yellowy green underneath. Yeah, so these are all just double toned. I might not be getting the best idea of what I'm looking at here. So these are also, it's not just that they're, they don't just have a subsurface color, they also have a degree to which that color shows through. And so these are actually maximum subsurface color right now. And so it's kind of hard. They're actually probably more influenced by their subsurface color than their actual color right now. But what's great about that is I can do skin if I have this. So I could have a teal color for the normal surface albedo and a like red basically for the subsurface, and it would look a lot like skin with the right roughness values and everything. And then once I get hair in place, a certain material ID, I'll have to see how fast I can do that. But as soon as I get hair in place, then I can have like actual realistic, but pseudo-realistic looking models. That'll be fantastic. I have the beginnings of an animation system in place. It's not that complicated. It's just blend trees. I'm looking into inverse kinematics, but I'm not that familiar with it, and I don't know how complicated it is. But I have a basic animation system in place, and I'm working on it. And it wouldn't be too hard to get it from where it is to where I can actually start animating models, and I could have like a character in this game world. Hooray! That would be great. I'm already able to kind of run around the terrain a bit. It's not doing anything fancy for the curve, the non-cube surfaces, but it's not far. What else? Trying to make this one quick, but I also have a lot to show, or had a lot to show. I've shown most of it by now, I think. Yeah, lots of fancy lights, lots of work on the engine. Optimization, huge amount of refactoring just to get it where I like it. I'm moving closer and closer to an actual like standard render engine, but something more to my liking than like using XML and crap for the rendering specifications, I guess. Saying like use this program to render to that texture there, then blit that texture to that. I have my own way of doing that right now that I prefer to the standard way, but we'll see how that evolves. I feel like I'm forgetting a lot. I mean, it's been a lot of work. I've also been down for the last 4 months. So I don't know if I already mentioned this. I don't think I did. But I've talked about this in the Hack/Mine forum thread. But over the past 4 months, I've actually been dealing with basically health issues. We'll say that. And I'm mostly out of the woods at this point, but before I was basically sleeping all the freaking time, and it was incredibly stressful and hard to deal with, especially given that I have so many side projects that are demanding of my time, and I don't have that, But I'm mostly out of the woods. Not entirely. A few weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did a bunch of Hack/Mine streaming, and it's finally compiling, if you've kept up with that, which is great. That's fantastic. However, after I felt better, so dealing with this health stuff, I felt amazing on that particular weekend that I was doing that, and then I do not feel as amazing now, and so I think I overdid it. So in terms of doing Hack/Mine streams, just keep paying attention, but hopefully I'll be better and able to do more of those. However, I don't need to be committing myself to that again like I did before. I think I overdid it for sure. So yeah, health stuff, no fun. Sigh. Anyways, what else is there? I know I've done more stuff with the engine. I don't know, I started working on some basic physicsy stuff, but none of it's in the game yet. basically just calculating inertia tensors and things for various shapes. I've got these things. They're still around and they still work. Whee! The inside of these look really cool, the way I'm currently doing it. One problem right now with my lights is that I am, ooh, whoa, that looks cool. One problem with my lights right now is that they're all actually full screen quads. I'm not doing volumes yet, although it's not really hard to get to. It was just, with the time I had, it made more sense to just do it this way. Also, if the lights are big enough, I think it makes more sense to do all of your full screen lights in one pass so you don't have as much fill rate issue. Because if you're reading textures like with different passes rather than all in one pass, it can save you substantially in a deferred rendering setup. Yeah, now that I'm doing deferred rendering, fill rate's a huge consideration. My frame rate is way better and more smooth, but now it's like I have to be thinking about the systems I'm targeting and if they're going to have enough VRAM for what I want and that kind of thing. But fortunately, because I'm using a modern language, it's not hard for me to make something that's very dynamic and can fit whatever system you're using. And I can, you know, take out features and put features in depending on your specs. And I'm already doing a bit of that. Man, this looks so good right now. Golly. Yeah. And terrain. I've bumped it up a bit. I haven't tried bumping it up much further. I probably should. I probably should have done that to show off in the video, but it's pretty good now. I bumped it up a bit, but not extremely. Yeah, I'm gonna cut this off, and then I'm gonna cut on with just regular blocks, and we'll take a look at how that's doing right now. Be right back. Cubes, wonderful cubes. I've optimized my engine in general, but I have not done the same optimization that I did for marching cubes to these, which may or may not be necessary. I have to test it to find out. However, yeah, these are what these currently look like, which is not bad. Maybe get a close-up look here. Yeah, so, you know, about what you would expect, I suppose. Nothing too fancy going on with these, at least compared to what I was doing before. Yeah, blocks. Blocks are wonderful. You know, these don't actually look that bad with the lighting. I thought they did before, but looking at it on my desktop now, it's actually kind of neat how only one side of them will light up versus the other ones. Though I guess from a distance, like the lotting just looks awful with these. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm about out of stuff to show. Thank you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Like and subscribe if you want to continue receiving updates on this project and other things that I am working on. Yeah. So hopefully, and as far as my health stuff goes, hopefully I get better soon. And I'm doing fine. Do not worry for me. But yeah, things are very slowly getting better. So hooray. Yeah. Bye for now.